500 years ago, no one was writing about Jakarta. It didn't exist yet. Not as a city, not as a name, not as the beating heart of nations. And yet, here we are. 5 centuries of history. 5 centuries of struggle, survival, and transformations. 5 centuries of people who built, dream, rebuilt, and dream again. Now Jakarta is about to turn 500 years. And I want to ask you something that has been quietly troubling me for months. When the celebration fades, when the fireworks stops, and when the banners are taken down, what will actually change? Because a city doesn't become great just because it grows older. A city becomes great because its people grow wiser. Good morning, everyone. My name is Fatimah Azzahra. I am a 12th grade student at SMA Negeri 100 Jakarta. And today, I want to talk about the one thing that will determine whether Jakarta next 500 will be her best. Reading. I know. Reading. In an age of artificial intelligence, space explorations, and gene editing, reading sounds almost quaint. But I believe that's exactly the problem. We have become so obsessed with what technology can give us that we have forgotten what only humans can become. Let me explain what I mean. Ask a search engine any questions, and you will have an answer in zero point 0.4 seconds. But having an answer is not the same as having understanding. We live in an age of informations and an age of distractions. We scroll to thousands of words every day, but how much of them stay with us? We consume headlines, we share opinions, and react to things we haven't fully read. And somewhere along the way, we start confusing knowing with understanding. We mistake being informed for being educated. We mistake having an opinion for having wisdom. And that is dangerous. Because your car next 500 will not be shaped by how much information we can access. They will be shaped by how wisely we use it. Let me be more specific. When we talk about Jakarta's future, we usually talk about things like smart transportations, clean energy, flood resistance infrastructure, digital governance. All of that matters. Of course, it matters. But here's what not policy documents or engineering blueprint can capture the character of people who make those decisions. Because the future doesn't happen to us, but the future is chosen by us. And every choice, every single choice, is shaped by what we have learned. Not just fact, not just formulas, but stories, histories, philosophies, and perspectives that are not our own. And that is what reading gives us. Think about it. A book cannot speak, and yet it can change how we speak. A book cannot walk, and yet it can take us further than any airplane ever could. A book cannot make decisions, and yet it quietly shapes every decision we will ever make. How? Because reading is the only thing that allows us to borrow another person's mind. When you read, you stop seeing the world only through your own eyes. For a few moments, you've become someone else. You feel what they felt, you fear what they feared, and you dream what they dreamed. And that is where leadership truly begins. Not with speaking the loudest, not with having the most followers, but with understanding what other people need before they even know how to ask for it. Great leaders don't just know things. Great leaders understood people. And people cannot be understood through data alone. They must be understood through stories. This matters for Jakarta more than you might think, because our city will face challenges that no generation before us has ever faced. It's like climate change, rising sea levels, overcrowding, inequality, and new challenges we cannot yet name. Artificial intelligence can help us analyze data, but it cannot teach us compassion when a neighborhood floods and families lose everything. It cannot teach us integrity when we are tempted to take shortcuts. It cannot teach us courage when choosing what is right is harder than choosing what is easy. Those lessons are not learned from algorithms. They are learned from literature, from philosophy, from history, from biography, and from poetry. They are learned from reading. Sometimes people ask me, does reading really change the world? I believe books do not change the world by themselves, but people do. But books also change people, and people change the world. There is no revolution that did not begin with an idea. There is no invention that did not begin with curiosity. There is no leader who did not begin as a learner. The next scientist who discovered solutions for Jakarta's flooding could be reading in a classroom today, and the future mayor of our city could be turning page in library tonight. The young person who will answer our greatest challenges might be sitting here right now, and they won't succeed because they only have a smartphone. They will succeed because they have a mind that was trained to think. So, what does reading today, reading the future actually mean? It means building a generation that can think critically. It means building a generation that can distinguish truth from misinformations. It means building a generation that listens before judge, learns before it decides, and understands before it acts. Jakarta is about to turn 500 years old. That is a remarkable moment, but it is also a dangerous one because anniversary can make us proud, and a pride can make us lazy. We might look backward and think, we've survived this long. We'll survive anything. But survival is not enough. The question is not whether Jakarta will survive. The question is, will Jakarta thrive? We build a city that is not just bigger, but better? Will we build a city that is not just smarter, but wiser? Will we build a city that is not just wealthier, but more just? That depends on us. Which brings me back to where I began. The generation before us built Jakarta with courage, resilience, and hope. Now the is in our hand, and it is time for us to ask ourselves, what will we write? Will we write a chapter of divisions or unity? Will we write a chapter of greed or generosity? Will we write a chapter of fear or possibility? I don't know your answer, but I know mine. Ladies and gentlemen, the pen is already in our hands. The page is waiting. The future is unwritten. Let us make sure the story we write is one worth reading. Thank you.